Good morning, brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, guys and dolls, cats and kittens, all of the above. It's good to see each of you here this morning. Appreciate your attendance to the class. You know, you see those timeline delayed time photos of a flower or a plant or something coming up, and you see the bud and it opens up and you see that bloom and stuff. Those are always pretty fun to watch, you know, to see it from the beginning to the end. I guess today we would say that's awesome. You know, words lose their effect, do they not? Boy, did you see those new shoes that dude had on? Yeah, they were awesome. Really? I mean, were they awesome? When we compare it to our awesome God, those words just don't seem to play well together, do they? I like the word that Michael taught us a while back, sovereign. I've been familiar with that term a long time, sovereign, but I don't know if I knew really what that meant. But Michael talked about sovereign meaning absolutely over all, complete majesty of everything. And that's what our God is. He is sovereign. I like that term. God had a plan from the very beginning, from the minute he said, "Let there be," okay? He had a plan. We even talked about Wednesday night, Genesis 3, we weren't in very, very far at all until we talked about Satan bruising a heel, but Jesus crushing his head. That plan was in place. We look at people's lives, we see them as infants, as toddlers, and we watch as they grow and mature into adulthood and the things that they achieve. So because of that, timeline has always been important to me. I studied music in college and music history, kind of like what Brother Jimmy said. He wished he still had that Western Civ book that we didn't pay off a lot of attention. It was so hard, music history, when we were trying to grasp all of that stuff. In my life now, I have a pretty fair grasp of it because of the study of history. And so I've been studying the scriptures as a timeline for a long, long time, for years, decades, I guess. And because of that, I'm familiar with it. And I know that over the past few weeks, I've been spouting out a lot of information up here. And I fear that I've gone too fast, too hard, too much, because it seems in the pocket to me, because I study it that way all the time. So my attempt this morning is once again to maybe slow down, to review a little bit. Would really appreciate any questions or comments, or hey, wait a minute, Casey, what do you mean by that, or whatever, because we're here to study. This is our class. This isn't my class. Casey, is that your class on Sunday morning? No, it's not my class. It's our class. And so we're here to study and to learn together. That's why I requested the elders, and they were so kind and confident to let me study it this way. So I just feel like if we see it as it unfolds, it's easier to understand. To me it is. So hopefully relatively soon I'll be able to maybe give some handouts or some outlines and things that we can go over together, or places where you can make your own notes and will help us understand the things that we're wanting to achieve. So rather than go back a long, long way to review, you know, I can go ahead and mention Abraham at 2,000 and Moses at 1,500. And we talked about David being at 1,000 And I also explained how these numbers are rough numbers. I mean, I'm alive today, but I was born 1953, so what's a good date for me? You got some sponge on any side of these, most of these numbers, okay? So if we look at the period of the judges starting at about 1400 BC and lasting 350 years, that gets us to about 1050. Okay, 1400, 1400, period of the judges, 350 years in which the book of Ruth is in that period, gets us to about 1050. Samuel, the end of the judges, the beginning of the kings, 1050. So we got easy numbers here. Saul, how many years was he king? 40 years. How many years was David king? 40 years. How many years was Solomon king? 40. Okay. Pretty good number. 40 comes up. I don't know what's the deal with 40. 40 days, 40 nights, all kind of stuff with 40. But anyway, so 1050. We get 40 years of Saul. That gives us to 1010, which is David. I said 1,000, so give me 10% freedom there. 1% freedom. 1050. So then 40 for David brings us to 970, right? If Mr. Rousey taught me right at Pope. Then from 970, Solomon's got 40. That brings us to 930, which is the divided kingdom. Okay, that's when the divided kingdom started. So that's kind of where I want to start this morning. We just kind of ran past the divided kingdoms. At 9:30 is when the divided kingdom happened, and then boom, I started rambling. So divided kingdom, what was up with the divided kingdom? Well, we got 10 tribes going north. We got 2 tribes staying south. Don't know what the deal was with Israel and Judah. 2 Samuel 19:43. Let's turn there together, because one of the things I want to do is to study these things from the scriptures together, so you'll kind of see how I do this. Now, we studied this on Sunday morning. It's been a month or so ago, I guess, in Michael's sermon. But 2 Samuel 19:43, but the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 parts in the king, therefore we also have more claim on David than you. Why then did you treat us with contempt? Was it not our advice first to bring back our king? Now, this is when David was running, I think, from, who's he running from at this point? Absalom? Absalom? Yeah, okay. He's running from Absalom. He ran from so many people. He would stand and fight when he thought he needed to stand and fight, but if he was fighting against the Lord's anointed or family, he wasn't going to, he would run. So why then did you treat us with contempt? Well, it's not our advice first to bring back our king. Yet the words of the men of Judah were harsher than the words of the men of Israel. So as this thing starts to have its inception of trouble here, Judah, David, was of the tribe of Judah. Okay, they were the original Judah, and there was only one tribe there that kind of was consolidated in this southern kingdom. Benjamin comes over. So we've got Judah and Benjamin are the 2 tribes in the south, right? Okay, well, Benjamin was, who was from Benjamin that we know there? Saul. Okay, so we got Saul, we got David with Judah. Maybe that's why those 2 were, they were the kingly tribes, I guess, at that point. And then the other 10 felt like, well, why ain't we got a king out of our tribes? We got Judah and Benjamin, they got kings, we don't have a king. All right, flip one page in my Bible, 2 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. Now a worthless fellow, boy, how would you like to be referred to by that in the Bible? You know, a worthless fellow happened to be there whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. And he blew the trumpet and said, we have no portion in David, nor do we have an inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel. So this is when Israel was pulling away from the southern kingdom, from the kingship of David, even though this guy's a Benjamite. Obviously, this is before Benjamin and Judah were kind of consolidated as the southern kingdom. So, if we flip on over to 1 Kings, 1 Kings 12, verse 16. Now this is right at 930 when the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom were separated. 16. When all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. O Israel, now look after your own house. Well, these are the exact same words. This worthless fellow, Sheba, who they ended up killing. Somebody killed him, probably Joab. Same absolute terms that they're using right there. So we see the northern kingdom having animosity toward the southern kingdom. Now this is right at the division. We have no inheritance. Verse 16, when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, which king now are they referring to? Well, they weren't referring to Saul or to David or to Solomon. They've all passed away. End of chapter 11 is the death of Solomon. So we now have Jeroboam, Solomon's son, is the king. And that's the king that they're referring to. We don't like Rehoboam. What did I say? Did I say Jeroboam? Yeah, too many Boams. Why? I wish they'd have been named Bill and Sam or something. It would be easier to keep them apart, you know. And no, I'm not going to say which one should have been Bill or Sam, so no one take offense, okay? There's a Jeroboam 2 later, so that's how I try to remember them. But Rehoboam was the king now, and these 10 northern tribes, they not much on Rehoboam, okay? So they say, boom, we're out of here. We're not going to worship you. We're going to take Jeroboam, and he's going to now be our king. Jeroboam was in Egypt. He'd been running from Solomon because there had been a little uprising. Solomon tried to squelch that, so boom, Jeroboam's gone to Egypt. Now Jeroboam comes up. He is going to be king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Rehoboam is the king of the southern kingdom. So that's where we kind of split right here at the divided kingdom of 930 BC. Okay, important date. Now, in all of the stuff we've been studying over the last few weeks, we're working from 930 BC at this point to 722 BC, which is the end of the northern kingdom that we see just now starting out, okay? So if we look at 930 to 722, say 720, you know, what we got here? 210 years, something like that, 200 years, this northern kingdom stays in place. I think I said last week, because I have written in pencil, that's a great thing that it's in pencil, I wrote 250 years north, but as I look at this now, it's 200 years. Perhaps the other 50 years was counting back to Solomon. I don't know why I wrote 250. I copied it from somewhere. Or once again, working with those round numbers, but 200 years is really a better round number, okay? 9 dynasties in those 200 years of kings. Now, when I say dynasty, I mean family, right? You know, Saul became king, Samuel says, nope, because of your disobedience, your family's not even going to be king anymore. No more of you. So when Jeroboam starts, we got 9 different families involved all the way down to 722. One's killing another one. Nobody's son gets to be king. They kill the son. He takes over. As I said last week, a couple of those kings were kings for a couple of weeks before somebody came in and killed them. I mean, just mayhem and nothing good going on in the northern kingdom. And why maybe was that? Well, let's stay right here in 1 Kings chapter 12. Pretty important set of verses here, starting with verse 25. I love to write in my Bible. I don't know when I made these notes, but as I was studying this week, I found them, and it's like, that's good. It's in the Bible, so how could it not be good, okay? So even though I didn't write anything in, I just made check marks. That's why it's good, not because I said it. All right, so let's look at chapter 12, starting in verse 25. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there, and he went out from there and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom will return to the house of David if this people go up and offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem. Then the heart of this people will return to their Lord, even to Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. What sort of attitude can we put with this? What do we say this is? Conceit. And defeated. Defeated. Conceit, defeated. Pride. Is that what you said? Pride? Jealousy, maybe? So we see the root of our problem here, do we not? Sin. Okay? Sinful attitude. They will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Fear, I guess, to some degree you could toss in there as well. So the king consulted and made 2 golden calves. And he said to them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold your gods, O Israel, that brought you up from the land of Egypt. Oh, my goodness. These 2 golden calves that he made are the gods that brought them up from Egypt? Yeah, how do you sell that to somebody? He must have been a pretty good salesman. And he set one up in Bethel, and he put the other one in Dan. Verse 30. Now this thing became a sin for the people who went to worship before the one as far as Dan. Dan was way up in the northern part, so he kind of split them up so he wouldn't have to travel too far, especially not up to Jerusalem. Down on the map, but we always know that you go up to Jerusalem because it's on a hill, right? And he made houses on high places and made priests from among all the people who were not of the sons of Levi. And Jeroboam instituted a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like the feast which is in Judah. And he went up to the altar. Thus he did in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves which he had made, and he stationed in Bethel the priest of the high places which he had made. Then he went up to the altar which he made in Bethel on the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised in his own heart. He came up with this idea himself, and he instituted a feast for the sons of Israel, and went up to the altar to burn incense. Is there anything right about that? It's in the wrong place. He's made idols out of calves. He made them himself. He set up the day of worship. He's anointed priests, not of the Levites. He's offering stuff himself. So, every point. Here are the notes that I found when I looked in my Bible. I wrote big over in the margin, changed. Number one, object. The object of worship changed. It's not God, it's calves. Place, I put. Are we in Jerusalem? Nope. We're in Dan and we're in Bethel. People. This thing became a sin to the people. Here's the king making these people sin because of his actions. And then the time. It said that he came up with the time, verse 33, which he devised in his own heart. This isn't based on anything. He just said, oh, okay, let's see, 15th, 8th month. That's going to be that's when we do it. So, we see things have changed. Not changed by God, but changed by who? Man. Can we relate that to anything today in even worship on this Lord's Day that's happening this very day around the world? Man has changed things. They said, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. If you want to know which way it should be done, go back and look at last Wednesday night's class. We laid out how it was supposed to be by example from the New Testament churches. So we see man changing things, and it's going to last 200 years through 9 different dynasties before the end comes to this thing. We're headed already here in 1 Kings. We're headed already to the end of 2 Kings, okay? It's a coming. God has a plan. Things happen for a reason. It's one of those things. God is in control, but what? If I go jump off a cliff, what's going to happen to me even though I pray and I love God? Laws of nature are, so God allows us free will. We've got the free will. He knew this was going to happen because he preordained stuff to happen to fix it. All the way back in Genesis 3, okay? He's got a plan. Christ is coming. We're going to fix all of this because I know y'all going to mess it up. I think somewhere in there is probably a lesson on mercy and grace, isn't it? I would think. Okay, so at that point in my little notes here, I have got us jumping to 2 Kings 14 and 23. 2 Kings 14 and 23. Now this is the reign of Jeroboam II. Which, if you want to throw this one down, Jeroboam II is right in here with Amos. Okay, about 790. Okay, if you want to jot down that date, about 790 BC is the reign of Jeroboam number 2, who was maybe twice as bad as Jeroboam number 1, I'm unsure. 2 Kings 14:23. In the 15th year of Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria. Reigned 41 years. Now we have to be careful because we got a Joash king in Judah, and Joash must have been Sam or Bill back in those days because a bunch of people, different people named that. Verse 24, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. Now that's Jeroboam 1. Okay? Now we're from 930 to, what did I say, 790. This can't be son. It's on down the line a little bit, but we're still referring back to how Jeroboam 1 made the people sin. Now Jeroboam 2 is doing the same thing. Okay, he did evil in the sight. Number 25, he restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath as far as the sea of Arabah, according to the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, which he spoke through his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet who was from Gath Helper. Now that's our Jonah of Jonah. That's That's fishing guy Jonah, okay? He restored the border. This is restoring the border that Solomon had reached, okay? We got a reference there. Ooh, did I make a note or did I let that one get by me? I'm going to say 1 Kings 8:65. We studying together. Let's look at that. I'll look for you if you want me to. 1 Kings 8. What did I say? 65? Huh? So Solomon observed the feast at that time, and all Israel with him, a great assembly from the inch of Hamath to the brook of Egypt. Now we know where Egypt is. That's about as far south as we can go, and Hamath is way up north. So this shows what Solomon had achieved in his reign, how much territory he had. I mean, it was the largest Israel had ever seen under the reign of Solomon. And here we see Jeroboam too coming back. But look at verse 26, and this kind of what gets us in the program here. For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, which was very bitter. For there was neither bond nor free, nor was there any helper for Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam and all that he did, There's no help. He saw the affliction. So now we see chapter 15 starts with Uzziah and Zechariah in Israel. Well. Who do we have? We got Amos. There was no help for these people. God saw them. No helper in Israel. So he starts sending these prophets to them. And the first one right here is Amos, okay? That's the first one we see. And Amos told them, God is going to judge you for your unfaithfulness. Chapter 7, 8, we talked about that plumb line. He's fixed to put a level on them, baby. If it isn't level, if you're not straight, if you can't... Goat's left, sheep's right, however you want to look at it. We got a plumb line we're fixing to measure. He told them in Amos chapter 7, verse 10. Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, the priest of Bethel. This is one of those that's come down from Jeroboam. These are not Levitical priests, okay? This is somebody that a king's made a priest. Sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is not able to bear all his words. How about that? It's almost like the people at Sinai, right? God's voice was so they couldn't bear it. It's so much truth in it, we can't stand it. You know, don't tell me anymore about how bad I am. I can't stand it. So, the land is not able to bear his words. For thus Amos has said, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away captive from their own land. He's telling them right now, due to all of this stuff that's going on, okay? Amos declared that God was going to judge his unfaithful people. They thought they could do these worship rites and all of these things that Jeroboam 1 had set up, and Jeroboam 2 here hundreds of years later was steady pushing on these people, forcing them to sin, forcing them to worship in an incorrect manner. Just like when Jesus said, they worship me in vain. Teaching what? The doctrines of men. Old Testament, New Testament, mirror, image, learning, we send the same attitudes. Nothing's really changed. God doesn't change. His program hadn't changed, and we see it through this timeline. What did God say in Amos chapter 5, verse 21? I reject your festivals, nor I delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer up to me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I will not accept them, and I will not even look at the peace offerings of your fatlings. take away from me the noise of your songs. Boy, that's to a musician, if they say it's noise, you have not done well. I will not even listen to the sound of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. We're going to flood, baby. We're going to cover it all. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion and those who feel secure in the mountain of Samaria. Boy, they thought they were okay. We up on this hill. Nothing's going to happen to us. It's going to come in like water. So we see God sending these prophets. The first one, Amos, trying to get these people to turn their program around. Okay. At the same time, when Amos comes, he's the first guy, and we gave Amos what? He's the earliest one. What did we give him? 760? About 760 BC for Amos, first prophet coming into the north. Now, Amos only prophesied to the north. He wasn't prophesying to the south. The big problem right now is these people worshiping incorrectly in an imperfect way to an imperfect God by imperfect time frame in an imperfect place. So God's saying, Amos, go to Bethel. That's where he said. That's where the high priest Amaziah said, man, he's up here talking, we can't even stand it. It was at one of these places of worship. It's where the upper echelon of people came, was to Bethel. It was closer to Samaria, the capital, rather than them going all the way up to Dan. That's probably why Jeroboam set him up down there, so he wouldn't have to go so far to go to church. Okay, so we give Amos about 760. Next guy is Hosea. Same time frame, okay? Maybe 750. I mean, they're all in there. God's trying to put these people in there. Now, Amos declared God was going to judge his unfaithful, disobedient, covenant-breaking people. He was a vigorous spokesman for God's justice and righteousness, whereas Hosea emphasized God's love, grace, mercy, and forgiveness. So we got one guy over here saying, y'all, and the other guy saying, y'all, but come on back. That's why the story of Hosea is about the unfaithful wife. The kids ran her out of the tent. Get rid of her. But not for her to go away, but for her to see, be distressed, to repent, and to return. That's what the concept of sending Gomer out was, in hopes that she would see her error, repent of her mistakes, and come back. That's what God was trying to get his people to do. And, what example can God give us through our lives? I've lost a son. Y'all know that. Can you think of anything? I can't think of any sacrifice that God could use as an example for us as to sacrifice his son. That's beyond my comprehension. Second to that is the heartache of an unfaithful spouse. These are the examples that we get God trying to show us things that we understand to the core, to the marrow. Okay? To the marrow. All right, as I study, let's go to Hosea. How long is it going to take us to find that one? I hope y'all have a tab. He's right in there around Amos somewhere, maybe just before. No, he's before Joel, who we're going to have to talk about Joel and Obadiah later. We don't know dates on them, but we're going to wait till the end of the beginning of the Babylonian captivity. They may anyway, I won't talk about that yet. Okay, Hosea chapter 11. When Israel was a youth, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Now I'm going to one that's easier to find, and that is Matthew chapter 2:15. And there was until the death of Herod, and what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, out of Egypt did I call my son. Okay, we got referral right here in Matthew 2:15 to Hosea 11:1. All right, so we got the writer Matthew, boom, referring back to Hosea. I just find these things as I'm studying. Let's look at Matthew 19. Matthew 19:13. This is Jesus talking. Let's go back up to 12. Matthew 9, what did I say? 9:12? That's what I meant to say. 9, not 19. Matthew 9:12. But when he heard this is Jesus, he said, it is not those who are healthy who need a doctor, but those who are sick. You always find it funny when you go to the doctor and they say, hey, how are you today? I'm at the doctor. Why? So it's not the healthy who need a physician, but those who are sick. Verse 13. But go and learn what this means. I desire compassion and not sacrifice, for I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Let's flip over back to old. I hope you don't have to hunt Hosea again. Go back to where you had your finger. I should have told you. Hosea 6, verse 6. For I delight in loyalty rather than sacrifice, and in the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. So we got Jesus referring back to Hosea. Anything important there? How about old Luke? What'd he have to say? Luke 23 and verse 26. Luke 23:26. I hope I wrote that down right. Okay, 30. Yeah, my good old eyes. Where's Chris Walls when you need him? Yeah, I saw that as 30. Okay, then, all right, well, we can start. Look at 28. Luke 23:28. But Jesus, turning to them, said, here's Jesus talking again, daughters of Jerusalem, stop weeping for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things in the green tree, when things are good, what are they going to do when things are bad, in the dry? Hosea. Did you keep your finger there? 10:6. No, 10:8. Boy, I can't read this morning. Hosea 10:8. Also the high places of Avon, the sin of Israel, will be destroyed. Thorn and thistle will grow on their altars. Then they will say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. Christ quoting Hosea again, saying, look, your sin is going to get you. That's what Hosea was begging these people that were worshiping in Bethel. Yes, ma'am.
Are we still on 750 BC?
We're still on 750 BC. So, well, we weren't in Matthew and Luke. I know you know that. But anyway, no, we're still at 750 BC. That's Hosea. All of this is coming up. The prophets that we are talking about now, starting with Elijah and Elisha, which didn't write books. They were in the 800s, right at the turn of the century. Let me look and tell you so we won't get that wrong. $750, Elijah, 850, and Elisha after that. No, that was Elisha. It was 850. Where's Elijah? What did I say? Somebody write it down?
900.
Yeah, right around 900. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So not long after that, we're right at the turn of 900. We got Elisha coming 850. So yeah, 900, 850. We got Elijah and Elisha. Then boom, we've got Amos at 760, Hosea at 750. Okay, now those are the last two prophets that prophesied to the northern kingdom only. Okay? Because it's not long after this, we're at 750 with Hosea. 722 is our magic number when the Assyrians come. Amos tells them, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it good from this army that's coming. That's all he said. Hosea said, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it good from the Assyrians. He told them that's where it was coming from the Assyrians themselves. Now then, wow. Okay, the next two prophets, the last two prophets before the captivity, cross over. They prophesy to Israel until they're gone. Then they continue to prophesy to Judah. And they are Micah. And we can give Micah a date of probably 725, 730, right in there, right before the Assyrian captivity. And the other one is the big gun himself, Isaiah, the prince of prophets, the greatest writing prophet in the scriptures. Okay, we will talk about Micah and Isaiah. If you want me to go ahead and give you the dates, we got a couple of minutes. No, that's in new notes that I didn't get to. Let's look at these old notes here. Micah probably 725. What did I say about Micah? Little is known about him except what can be learned from Jeremiah 26:18, if you want to throw that one down real quickly. He was from the town of Morsheth, southern Judah. Micah's message is before the reforms of Hezekiah. So, yeah, 747 to 722, which was the end. So 730, 725, somewhere in there for Micah, okay? Like I said, you can't just pick a number for a guy that lived to be 50, 60 years old. Okay. Micah's message was primarily to the small towns. He was a country guy, as opposed to Isaiah, who lived in the city of Jerusalem, probably in the palace with Hezekiah, because he's probably a cousin, prince of prophets. He could have been considered a prince. He definitely lived in the city. And so we got city guy, we got country guy. Micah living in the country, prophesying to the country folks. Micah's famous ones, the ones that always ring out to me, are Micah 6:6. That's a good number to remember, is when he says, God doesn't want 1,000 rams slaughtered. He doesn't want 10,000 rivers of oil and all of this stuff. He don't want stuff. What does he want? He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now we'll talk a little bit more about Micah next week, because Micah 5:2, which was translated from the Hebrew to the Greek by Alexander the Great in 300 and something BC, says, from little old town of Bethlehem, somebody's coming. What date did we give Micah? 730 BC. That's 730 years before the birth of Christ. He's already giving the zip code, y'all. And this was translated 300 years before Christ was born. So anybody wants to deny that didn't, in 200 BC, you could have read that. if you could read Greek, you could have read those actual things that Micah said. So, okay. A little better, easier to understand, maybe slowing down. I just get to running sometimes. So, anyway, stop me. Throw up your hand and say, wait a minute, bro, what are you talking about? I didn't understand that. So hopefully this is going to slow things down. I think we're going to be able to hand out some outline things here before much longer, and that may help us as well. You think? Y'all even laughing about that. You think that would help? Okay. Very good. All right. We are, I think, past time. Where is everybody? All right, good deal. Thank y'all for your attention this morning.